What do you do when you realize that you work in a system that feels like a prison? Do you stay in the system and try to make it work? Or do you try to break out of the system so you can have freedom? That is a question that I had for myself and that I ask my clients a lot of times. Because if you think about it, the world that we live in, for a lot of people, is built on a system. It could be an education system that funnels you towards a certain path, like employment. It could be the medical system that funnels you towards the path of taking medications. It could be an institution of marriage that funnels you into a certain path. It doesn't really matter what the system is. For a lot of people, they participate in the system until they realize that the system is like a trap. The system feels like a prison. And then once you realize that and your eyes are open and you're like, this just doesn't fit, doesn't work for me, you're then stuck with the question, what do you do? Do you stay in and try to make it work? Do you just go with the flow of the system and just accept that, you know what, I'm part of this system, there's something I can do about it? Or do you try to break free and build something different for yourself? That's what we're going to be talking about today. So today I'm going to talk about what you can do if you choose to break free, because not everybody wants to break free out of the system. Some people are comfortable in the system. Some people go with the flow with this in the system. But if you want to break free and build something for yourself outside of the system, for example, build a business, then I'm going to talk about that today. So this video topic came about because I was having a conversation with one of my clients who is a physician, and we were talking about the journey into medicine and how we were in a way sold a dream, right? You go into a certain field. I'll speak for medicine because that's where I was before. I went into medicine with the intention of helping people, and I thought that becoming a doctor was going to help people. And so I dedicate years of my life towards studying the body and studying medicine so I can help people. And so you go into medicine and you go into your training and you realize that your training is helping people, but it's helping a small percentage of people. It's not helping people in the way that you thought, right? For some people, it's absolutely perfect. It's what they dreamt of and it works perfectly for them. But there are a lot of people who go in and they recognize that they're in a system that is actually working against what their intentions were, right? You come into a system to do something, but you're not even able to do it because there's so many different restrictions. It could be the hospital system, it could be the insurance system, it could be the pharmaceutical system. It doesn't matter, whatever the thing is, speaking for medicine. And so you realize that there are all these restrictions. And so I was talking to this client and she was telling me that one of her classmates who is like behind, like a couple of years behind, who's currently in residency, she feels like she's in prison. And I was like, yeah, that is what a system feels like. And I was telling her, I was like, when you finish from one set of a system, like residency, for example, you think that once you become an attending or once you have a job, then you're gonna have freedom. But you just trade one business for one prison or one system for another prison or another system. And so I was talking about how difficult it can be for physicians, because if you look at all the problems that people come into the physician's office for, a lot of their problems have to do with their job, right? And so she was asking me, how do you change the system, so that you can be healthy? Because within the system as well, even though the doctors are supposed to be helping patients, the system doesn't allow the doctor to be healthy. So we can tell you to sleep 8 hours, eat healthy foods, reduce your stress levels, all of that. But those don't apply to the doctor, right? The doctor is is not allowed to do that and the doctor tries to do that, then it is frowned upon or the doctor is deemed as lazy or whatever, right? So the system tells you to care, but the system doesn't care about you. It's a very terrible relationship. And so we were talking and she was like, well, how do you change the system? And I was like, I don't think you can change the system, right? As an individual, as a person, once you are in the system, once you're in prison and you recognize, because not everybody recognizes that they're in prison, but once you recognize that you're in prison, then you have to decide if this is the prison that you want to be in, if you're comfortable with it, if you're going to make it work, right? You're just going to be like, hey, that's just how the system is. I'm just going to deal with it and try to do my best within the system, right? Or you might think that if you're staying in the system, you're going to be able to make a change. But a lot of times you find that that's going to be impossible. If you stay in the system and you try to make changes, well, the people at the top who don't want you to make a change because the system favors them are going to squash you, okay? They're going to take you, well, you're going to get punished for trying to change the system because it works for people at the top. It works for a small group of individuals whose interest is not the livelihood of the person, but the livelihood of their pockets, right? And so, and I'm saying this, it doesn't matter what system we're talking about. It could be a business, it could be whatever. You're the person who you work for or the system that you're working for, it only cares about what it wants and it doesn't care about who you are and what you want, okay? There are very few systems that care about who you are. And so if you find yourself in a system or a business or a company that cares about the individual, then that is a good place to be, and that is not something that most people want to leave because it is a good place, right? It might still be a prison because you're told what your worth is, you're told when to come to work, you're told whether or not you can use your brain for something else. For example, a lot of physicians are not allowed to have a business outside of work, right? It's like frowned upon, or you get or even have social media. Like if you do anything that is deemed outside of what the system wants you to do, or what a company wants you to do, or a health system wants you to do, then you're going against their policy and you can get penalized. So being part of a system in a way requires you to trade your freedom for the consistency of the money that is coming in. And if you're okay with that, then that's great. But if you're not okay with it, then it is going to be important for you to learn how to break out of the system, okay? And so today I want to talk about what you need to do to break out of the system. And it's not an easy thing, but if you care enough, because there are only very few people care enough about getting the time freedom that they want and the financial freedom that they want, then you're going to go in that direction. And so the first thing that you're going to do in order to break free is you have to want the freedom more than you want the comfort that you currently have. So like I was saying before, a lot of times if you work a 9-to-5 job, for example, you have the comfort of knowing that you're going to get paid, right? You're going to get paid as long as you do the job, even if your body's breaking down in the process, or if you're being given the amount of work that 3 people need to be doing, but it's all put on you and you're getting the same pay, you know that no matter what, you're going to get paid a salary. You're going to get paid a certain amount of money. And so you have to want the alternative, which is the unknown, bad enough that you leave the certainty and the comfort of the prison to go into the unknown, right? And not many people are going to be able to do that. But if you decide that you want to start a business and you want to have time freedom and you want to have financial freedom, then you have to be comfortable with not having certainty in your finances. And so one of the things I was telling my client was, what she's currently employed and we're building her business, and I was like, you need to have a nest egg, okay? You need to save up a certain amount of money that allows you to feel comfortable with like making sure you have enough money to eat, you have enough money for a place to stay for like a certain period of time based on your tolerance level, because not everybody can handle the risk or not many people can handle the risk of not having a place to stay. Like nobody wants that, right? And or not having food to eat. And so one of the first things that you have to do is you need to save money. Okay, so if you're in this job, you're like, I'm giving myself 1 year to get out so I can build something new, then save up enough money so that if it takes you a year to get where you want to go, you have a year's worth of savings. Okay, a lot of people say 6 months. I think 6 to 12 months of savings is going to be sufficient, okay, so that you feel calm enough to be able to work on the business. Okay, so save money. That's the first thing. And then the second thing that you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to work on your identity. Okay, and the identity piece is basically unlearning all the things that you learned before, right? And I would say probably this is the hardest thing that a lot of people have to deal with, because imagine you are 40 years old and you have learned so many things in the past 40 years, and then now you have to let go of 40 years of knowledge in order to go in a completely different direction. For a lot of people, that is not something that they're comfortable doing, but that is the price that you have to pay to get the freedom that you want, right? If freedom is the goal, time freedom, financial freedom, then you have to step into the unknown and you have to create who you're going to be. Because right now, you being in a 9-to-5 job or being part of a system, you don't have full control over who you are, right? You're being told what you're worth. You're being told how to use your time, right? Vacation hours, hours of work. You're being told a lot of things. You're being controlled for money, right? Someone is controlling you and say, I'll take your control and give you money. And so if you're deciding to be in a place where you're like, I don't want you to have control over me, I'm going to control myself so I can get the money, then those are two different mindsets. And you need to basically get to the point where you're like, you're betting on yourself, right? You're betting on the fact that I know that I can control myself. I can control my actions. I can control my thoughts. I can control my emotions. And once you are able to do those things, if you're the type of person who can control their thoughts, their emotions, and their actions, then you're definitely the type of person who can work for yourself and who can have time freedom and financial freedom. But if you cannot control your thoughts, you cannot control your emotions, you cannot control your actions, then you're not going to be able to do that. So you have to decide that this is who you're going to be. You're going to be the type of person who has control over their body, who has autonomy over their body, who can tell their body to do an action and know that you're going to follow through. So at the end of the day, becoming a business owner requires you to have a high level of self-belief in who you are and what you are capable of. And a lot of people have this within the system. And that's why there's a lot of friction, because they know who they are, they know what they're capable of, but somebody else is telling them who they are, and someone is telling them what their capability is worth. And so there's this conflict, right, where it's just like, well, who are you to tell me all of this stuff? And I am not accepting of what someone else is telling me about me. I am only going to be accepting of who I know I truly am and what I deserve and what my worth is. And it only takes that type of person to not only go into business, but to be successful in business. So the second thing that you have to do outside of saving money is making sure that you identify as a person who can control their thoughts, their feelings, or emotions, and their actions. Okay, if you're able to do that, then you're able to start and scale a business and have time freedom and have financial freedom. And then the next thing that's going to be important is, if you decide to go into business, you have to choose the right business. And I'll give you an example. I was the type of person where I knew working in a hospital setting or in a insurance setting wasn't going to work for me. So I decided I was going to work for myself. And what was interesting about that decision was I thought that working for myself was going to give me time freedom and was going to give me financial freedom. The mistake that I made was the type of work I was doing, right? I went and decided to build a medical practice. And what I realized after 8 years of practicing medicine as a self-employed or solo practitioner was I built myself a prison. I thought that if I had my own practice, I would have autonomy and I would have time freedom and I would have financial freedom. And I had recognized that one problem I saw was the insurance model was a problem. So I took myself out of that model thinking that I was out of the system. But I wasn't out of the system because, one, my patients were still in the system. And so they had a certain mind frame they had a certain mindset that was of the old system. And even though I was out of the system, or I thought I was out of the system, we couldn't work together because their mindset and what their worth wasn't matching with what I thought my worth was, right? It wasn't connecting. I was attracting people, or I had people who wanted to take medication and to feel better, but didn't want to do work to feel better. And I was trying to tell them that if you have to do 80% of the work, and then the doctor only has to do 20% of the work, because the doctor's job is to diagnose when something is wrong. But in order for you to be healthy, you actually need to take the steps for you to be healthy. And then if something is not working, then the doctor fixes it. But a lot of the people who are part of the system believed that it had to be the opposite. The doctor had to solve their immediate problems and all the other things around it. They still wanted to have the poor habits, poor eating habits, poor movement habits, poor sleep habits. They wanted to keep all the things that were making them sick, and they wanted to take a pill or something to make them feel better. And so I realized that I was still stuck, because now not only did I have a business that had multiple bosses, because all my patients became my bosses, right? They were telling me what they wanted, and we had like a mismatch. So after 8 years of doing this, I realized that I picked the wrong business model. And so now what I ended up doing when I got out of that system completely, I decided to build a business that would attract people who wanted to be healthy, right? Because not everybody wants to be healthy. Just like I said, not everybody wants to get out of the system. Not everybody wants to get out of prison. Not everybody wants to be healthy. So I had to learn to build a system or build a business for people who wanted to get healthy, not people who wanted medicine so that they wouldn't be sick, right? There's like a difference. And so it's the same thing in business, where you don't want to go build a business that still feels like a prison. You don't want to end up being like self-employed, having a bunch of bosses, having a business method that doesn't work for you to get the goal, which is time freedom and financial freedom. And so the business model that I chose now for my other business, and I chose to do for this business, is to do group coaching, okay? Because with group coaching, I only spend 2 hours a week coaching my clients in a live setting, and then I am able to answer questions during a certain time frame. But now my calendar is completely open. I have time freedom, which I never had before because I was working a 9 to 5, even though I was self-employed, right? So now I have time freedom and financial freedom because I charge higher ticket prices for a transformation, right? They have a problem. I created a system for them to solve the problem, and I'm only working with people who want to solve the problem and not working with people who want me to help them solve the problem. My job now moving forward is to guide people, because I have experience in that certain problem, to guide people to take the journey on their own, right? But I'm there to guide them, so if they make a mistake, I can put them back on the right track. But they get the goal because their ultimate goal is to become a healthy person. That is the identity that they choose to be, and I help them get to that point. And so it's the same thing in business. If you're choosing a business model, you want to choose a business model that allows you to have one time freedom, that allows you to have financial freedom. And I believe that the group coaching model is the best option for that, because you also get to guide people, right? You have an experience, you've done something. The people who are coming in also want to do the thing that you've done, and you're saying, hey, I have the steps, these are the steps that you need to take, and I will guide you if you have questions along the way. The difference, the people who are coming in are people who have decided that they want to be out of a prison. They have decided that they are free. They have freedom in terms of their finances or their health, whatever it is. They choose to be free. They have free attached to their name. And so they're willing to do anything and everything to be free, right? And those are the people that you want to work with. And group coaching, in my opinion, from a business standpoint, is the way to do it. Okay. So third thing is pick the right business for what you're looking for. Okay, pick the right business model that gives you the time freedom, that gives you the financial freedom, and also that gives you the fulfillment of knowing that you're doing what you want to be doing. I always wanted to help people. My goal was to help people, and I thought that helping people by becoming a doctor would give me the satisfaction that I wanted. And when I went through the path that was laid out for me, I realized that it wasn't satisfying because I wasn't truly helping people. I was putting band-aids on people's problems. And so now, as a coach, I truly get to help people who want to be helped. And that was also another thing that I had to figure out, because I didn't realize that me wanting to help people didn't mean that people wanted help, right? And so if you go to somebody and you're like, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do, but they don't actually want the help, you're not going to take it. And so that was a lesson that I had to learn, was yes, it's okay to want to help, but help people who want to be helped. And if you do that, then there's a match, there's an energetic match, and the work is going to be enjoyable, and the work is going to flow, and the work will not feel like work. That is something that I have realized now, where coaching honestly does not even feel like work. It is so rewarding to see people taking steps towards their goal, towards their freedom, and to know that I am still helping them, right? So the format of helping people has changed, but the feeling is still the same. I still feel great that I'm helping people move forward towards the direction that they want to go into. The last thing that you need to do once you have saved up some money, built the identity, and decided that you're going to be the type of person who breaks free and has the self-control, right? You have control over your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and you pick the right business model for you, where you have the ability to turn your knowledge into a business, right? With the group coaching model. The last thing that you have to do is you need to be consistent with taking the steps necessary to grow your business, okay? I've heard this term called passive income, where I think the thinking is that if you put your money somewhere, the money is just going to make money, or if you do something one time, then it's just going to automatically make money. And that does not make any sense to me. There's nothing passive, right? If you want something and you want it consistently, then you have to put something in it consistently, right? And so for me, for example, consistency in my business is making these YouTube videos to attract my ideal client, right? I want to attract somebody who has decided that they want to break out of prison and they want to build a life of freedom, right? They want to use their knowledge to build a business, a group coaching business like I have, to have financial freedom, to have time freedom, to have autonomy, to have the ability to do whatever they want to do and not be told by somebody that they have to do it a certain way. So that's who I'm trying to work with. And the only way for me to work with these people is to put myself out there so that I can attract those people. And that requires me to do it consistently. Personally, I think putting yourself out there every day increases your chances of meeting people who are looking for you. So that is what I choose to do. I'm making videos consistently. Right now I'm doing a daily video challenge, and I'm hoping that I can do it for 6 months. We'll see how it goes. But no matter what the thing is, you have to do something every single day for your business. You have to do something to attract new customers, right? You have to do something in terms of your program or in terms of taking care of the people who are already in your program. So I have to do calls, which I don't have to do a lot. I just do it once a week. But I still need to chat with people if they're having questions when I'm not on a call, to help them so they can move along till the next time that I talk to them on the next call. And you need to work on your offer, right? Right now, I believe that having one offer is the best thing so that your mind is not disjointed. So have one offer, have one traffic source. So I choose YouTube, and then have a way of fulfilling, which is for me is weekly calls with my clients and then answering questions during a certain time frame. And that is the thing that I have to do every day consistently, because it's just like living, right? If you're going to live, you need to breathe, you need to eat, you need to drink water, you need to poop, you need to sleep. These are things that you must do to survive. If you don't do these things, you will not survive. And so you have to do the things necessary for your business to survive, which is getting traffic, working on your offers, and taking care of your clients, okay? And those are things that you do daily consistently, not thinking that, oh, I'm just gonna sit there and put the stuff out there and then it's just going to work. To me, mostly it doesn't work that way. I think that the better option in terms of a business is a business where you are able to impact people consistently, daily, because everybody's journey is a day-to-day journey. And so if they're going to be part of your ecosystem, they want to hear from you in some way. It doesn't have to be a live call every day, because I do calls once a week, but I check in, right? It's like a check-in. Is everybody on track? Are we doing the things that we need to do? Are we working on our traffic? Are we working on our offers? Are we taking care of our clients? Simple questions. It could be just 5 minutes just to remind people that the work that it takes to have time freedom and financial freedom requires them to consistently take certain actions, these 3 actions, so that they can move forward in the direction that they want to be in. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about the fact that a lot of people are currently living in a prison, and few of those people realize that they're in a prison and they want to get out of that prison. And in order for them to do that, and if you have the knowledge, right? If you have knowledge or skills that you can transfer over and turn it into a business, then first, save some money, right? Make sure you have a nest egg, or if you have a partner, then that might be helpful, but I don't believe in that. I think you should always save your own money, right? When you're going into business. And then 2, you need to make sure that you're the type of person who is self-reliant, who has self-control. You have control over your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions, and you're able to do things consistently. And then 3rd, pick a business model that gives you time freedom and financial freedom. For me, I think that's group coaching. That's what I do. That's what I've done that has worked for me, because I've tried different models and it didn't work. And then lastly, you have to commit to being consistent with the actions necessary to fuel your business, okay? If you're gonna eat and take care of your body every day, then you also need to do the same thing for your business. Think of a business as a baby. It needs oxygen and all the things to survive. So you need to be willing to consistently take the actions for your business to grow, okay? And if you do those things, then you will be able to not only break out of prison, but you'll be able to live in the land of the free. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. If you want to work with me, I'll leave how to work with me below, and I'll see you on the next video.